Welcome to the deep dive. So many listeners tell us that, well, understanding English isn't really the problem for them. They
Right.
can follow movies, podcasts, even keep up with conversations mostly.
hmm
But then when it comes to actually like opening your mouth and speaking,
Yeah.
it feels like hitting a wall.
That is such a common experience.
Yeah.
It really is. And that's exactly what we're diving into today.
Good.
We've sifted through quite a bit of advice, especially from English learning channels on YouTube,
Oh.
trying to really get a handle on why this happens.
And what to do about it, hopefully.
Exactly. What you can actually do. We're looking at insights from, well, teachers who've seen this struggle countless times, and also from learners, people who've actually managed to push through that wall.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive then is to give everyone listening some clear, actionable techniques.
Yeah, practical stuff.
And maybe even more importantly, a deeper sense of, the reasons why speaking feels so much tougher than understanding.
Right. Understanding the why could be really powerful.
We want to help you start speaking English more confidently. Maybe even starting, right after you finish listening.
That's the goal.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Why is speaking such a different beast compared to just, well, understanding?
It's a great question to start with. Um, think about learning an instrument, like, say, the piano.
Okay.
You can listen to a beautiful piece of music, a
hmm
sonata, right? And you understand it. You get the melody, the harmony, maybe even the emotion.
Yeah, I can appreciate it.
But that doesn't mean you can suddenly sit down and, play it yourself.
Ah, right. Good analogy.
Speaking is the active part, the performance. It needs your vocal cords, your tongue, your mouth, everything working together physically to make the sounds in a coordinated way.
So listening is more passive, receiving information.
Kind of, yeah. Whereas speaking is active output. You're not just processing, you're creating.
We need to actually train our language muscles then. Is that a way to put it?
That's a great way to put it. Your mouth, your brain, they have to learn to coordinate. It's about building muscle memory, really, and juggling all these mental processes at the same time.
And there's that other layer too, isn't there? The confidence thing.
Oh, absolutely. That's huge. Actually putting yourself out there, making sounds, making yourself heard, it adds this vulnerability.
Yeah, that you don't have when you're just quietly listening or reading.
Exactly. It feels like a bigger step for many people.
Okay, so practice is key, obviously. But one thing that seems to trip a lot of people up is translating in their heads.
Ah, the translation trap, yes.
Thinking in their native language first, then sort of converting it to English sentence by sentence or word by word even. Why is that such a problem?
Well, it basically creates this massive bottleneck in your brain.
Okay.
Imagine trying to have a quick conversation, but your mind is constantly busy being a translator, flipping back and forth.
Yeah, sounds exhausting and slow.
Terribly slow. You completely lose the natural flow, the rhythm of the conversation. It just doesn't work smoothly.
And I guess the English that comes out might sound a bit, I don't know, stiff, unnatural.
Often, yes. Less fluid.
Yeah.
Because it's constructed, not flowing naturally.
So how do we escape that trap? How do we stop the translating?
Well, the big goal, the really powerful technique, is to actively try and cultivate the habit of thinking in English.
Thinking in English. Okay. Sounds simple, but maybe not easy.
It requires conscious effort, definitely,
Yeah.
and consistency.
So instead of that intermediate step, that mental translation, I should try to just form the thought directly in English.
That's the ideal, yes.
But is it really possible to completely switch off the native language? Especially for complex ideas, doesn't it always kind of linger there?
That's a really sharp point. And yeah, your native language is always part of your cognitive makeup. You can't just erase it.
Okay.
But the aim is to minimize that conscious translation step, especially for everyday stuff, for fluency.
Yeah.
Think of it like driving a manual car versus an automatic.
Right.
You want shifting gears to become less effortful, more automatic, not this clunky manual process every single time.
Okay, good analogy. I get that. But how do we actually do that? How do I flip the switch in my brain to think in English?
Well, there's no magic switch, unfortunately. It's gradual.
Mm.
But you can take concrete steps. One of the biggest is creating an immersive environment.
Ah, immersion. So surround myself with English.
Exactly. As much as possible, even if you're not in an English-speaking country.
So like English music, movies, TV shows, reading in English.
All of that,
Yeah.
yes. And even smaller things, like changing your phone language settings or your social media feeds.
Okay. That forces you to engage constantly.
It does. It's about exposing yourself constantly to the rhythm, the patterns, the sound of natural English.
Yeah.
They kind of train your brain to just default to English more often.
So the more I hear it and see it used naturally, the less I'll need to translate. It's like building up a mental library of ready-to-use English.
That's it, exactly. A mental library.
Yeah.
And yeah, it takes time, it takes dedication to build that library, but even small steps, done consistently every day, they really add up.
Right. It's about building a new habit for your brain.
You got it. Cultivating a new cognitive habit.
Okay, consistency. Got it.
Mm.
Now, besides the translation issue, what other big roadblocks do learners hit when they try to speak?
Well, a really major one, maybe the most emotionally charged, is the fear of making mistakes.
Oh, yeah. That one's huge.
It can be genuinely paralyzing for some people. Stops them from even trying.
Tell me about it. That fear of sounding silly or saying the wrong thing, getting the grammar messed up, not being understood. I think every learner feels that, right?
Absolutely. It's almost universal.
So what can we actually do about that fear? How do we push past it?
Well, the first thing, the real mindset shift, is to truly understand and, internalize that mistakes aren't just normal, they're essential.
Essential.
Yeah. They're a fundamental part of learning any skill, language included. Honestly, even native speakers make slips sometimes.
That's actually really reassuring. You forget that when you're so focused on your own flubs.
Right. So the key is to reframe how you see those errors. Don't see them as failures or proof you're bad at English.
See them as...
Opportunities. Opportunities for growth. Each mistake gives you specific feedback. Okay, I need to work on that pronunciation, or that grammar point needs review, or I need a better word for that.
So it's like, you know those funny fail videos online?
Yeah.
Someone trips or messes up, but often they just laugh, maybe learn not to do that again. It's about being less serious about ourselves.
Exactly. That's a great way to think about it. Acknowledge the oops, maybe even laugh, figure out what went wrong, learn from it, and then just keep going. Don't let that fear of imperfection stop you from practicing.
Okay, that's a really helpful way to think about it. A mindset shift. So we need to practice. We need to get over the fear. Are there specific exercises or techniques that really help build that fluency muscle?
Oh, definitely. There are some really effective techniques. And one that comes up again and again, especially for getting that natural sound and rhythm, is called shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, I've heard the term, but I'm fuzzy on the details. How does it actually work?
Sure. So shadowing basically means you listen to a native speaker, could be from a podcast, a movie clip, news, whatever, and you try to repeat what they're saying almost at the exact same time. Like your voice is their shadow, following right behind them.
So I'd literally talk over the recording, trying to match them word for word, sound for sound.
That's the core idea, yeah. You're aiming to copy not just the words, but how they say them.
Okay.
The pronunciation, the intonation, the rise and fall of the voice, the rhythm, the pacing.
Wow, okay. It sounds like a full vocal workout for English.
It really is. It directly trains your mouth and ears to produce and recognize natural English speech patterns.
It's like having a live model built right into the exercise. Any tips for doing it effectively?
Yes, definitely. First, start small. Don't try to shadow a whole hour-long documentary right off the bat.
Okay, good advice.
Pick a short segment, maybe just a minute or two, and really focus on mimicking that speaker as closely as you possibly can. Then, as you get better, you can try longer chunks.
Start manageable, build up. Got it. What else?
Pay really close attention to the details, like how do they pronounce specific sounds? Where do they put the stress in a word or a sentence? How does their pitch change to show emotion or ask a question?
So it's not just saying the words, it's copying the music of their speech, too.
Exactly, the musicality. The more you tune into those nuances and try to replicate them, the more natural your English will start to sound over time.
Okay, this shadowing thing sounds seriously powerful. I'm definitely going to push listeners to try this one.
Please do.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly engaging once you get into it and really, really effective for fluency. Okay, so we've hit thinking in English, getting over mistakes, the shadowing technique. What other core advice is there for building speaking confidence? Practice is key, we know that, but how can we practice smarter?
You know, something I always stress is the often overlooked power of really mastering the basics, the everyday phrases.
Like, hello, how are you, thank you, that kind of thing.
Exactly those. They seem simple, almost trivial sometimes, maybe, but they are the absolute foundation of pretty much every conversation you'll ever have.
Okay.
And if you can say those basic things smoothly, automatically, without thinking, it gives you a huge confidence boost right at the start of any interaction.
That makes sense. It's like having a few reliable tools and you can always grab and use used correctly. Takes the pressure off a bit.
Absolutely. So my advice is really practice those phrases. Say them out loud. Maybe even practice in front of a mirror. Say them until they feel completely natural, totally effortless. Yeah.
So it's about more than just knowing them. It's about owning them, making them automatic.
Precisely. Owning them is a great way to put it. When you can use those building blocks without hesitation, without that mental calculation, it frees up so much mental energy for the rest of the conversation. It really helps build that overall feeling of competence.
Okay, focus on the fundamentals. Practice them until they're second nature. Good tip. What's another practical technique?
Another one that sounds almost too simple but is incredibly powerful is recording yourself speaking.
Recording myself.
Yeah.
Like just talking into my phone. I do that for shopping lists sometimes.
Well, yeah, but do it with intention for language practice. Pick a topic you like, talk about it for a couple of minutes. Or maybe read a short text aloud.
Okay, and then what? Just delete it.
No. The crucial part is listening back. Really listen to yourself. How's your pronunciation? How's the flow? Are you clear? It's like getting an objective snapshot of how you actually sound.
I see. It's like having a personal language coach you can replay.
Exactly. Your own personal coach. And it can be really eye-opening. You might hear things you do well that surprise you, but you'll also definitely spot areas you need to work on.
Okay, I can see that being useful, if maybe a little cringe-inducing at first.
Maybe a little, but it's incredibly helpful. So, what should I be listening for specifically when I review the recording?
Good question. First, pronunciation. Are individual sounds clear? Are there words you consistently stumble over? Make a note of those tricky sounds or words and practice them specifically.
Okay, pinpoint the pronunciation problems. What else?
Fluency. How smooth is it? Are there lots of hesitations? Too many ums and ers. Long pauses while you search for words. Notice where you get stuck or lose the flow, and then maybe practice those specific phrases or sentence structures more.
Right. Identify the bottlenecks in my own speech and work on smoothing them out.
Exactly. And also, don't be afraid to just experiment when you record. Play with your intonation. Try speaking a bit faster or slower. Try different ways to say the same thing. It's your practice space.
Get comfortable with your own voice in English. Find what sounds and feels natural for you.
Precisely. The more you play with it, the more confident and expressive you'll become.
These are all really practical, useful techniques. I feel like we're building a solid toolkit for listeners here.
I really hope so. And the key thing, really, with all of these shadowing, mastering basics, recording yourself is consistency. Even just 5 or 10 minutes of focused practice each day makes a huge difference over time.
Consistency is king. Absolutely. Okay, before we shift gears slightly, maybe we should quickly define a key term here. Fluent. Everyone wants to be fluent, but what does that actually mean?
That's a really important question because it means different things to different people. But generally, fluency is about being able to communicate your thoughts and ideas, smoothly, accurately, and without too much effort or hesitation.
So, not constantly searching for words, feeling comfortable expressing yourself.
Yeah, pretty much. It's about being able to use the language effectively in different situations, having that natural flow without getting bogged down in consciously thinking about every single rule.
So it's less about perfection, maybe, and more about effective communication.
Exactly. It's not about knowing every single word. It's about using the words you do know effectively and confidently.
That makes sense. And it sounds like it's more of a journey, too, not a fixed destination you suddenly arrive at.
Oh, absolutely. Language learning never really stops. It's a continuous process.
Well, this has been incredibly helpful already. We've talked thinking in English, tackling mistakes, shadowing, mastering basics. I'm feeling motivated myself to practice more consistently.
That's great. And remember, it should be enjoyable too, right? Find ways to practice that you actually like doing. Use materials that interest you.
Good point. Make it fun. Okay, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll dig a bit deeper into why speaking can be so challenging from a brain perspective and look at more strategies to really unlock that potential. Stay with us. Welcome back to the deep dive. We're digging into how to bridge that gap between understanding English and actually speaking it confidently. In the first part, we laid some really important groundwork, didn't we? Talking about thinking in English, reframing mistakes.
Exactly. And those practical techniques like shadowing, which I hope some of you are already trying out.
Me too.
But now I wanted to zoom in a bit on the why. Why is speaking often harder? Understanding a little bit about the brain science involved can actually help you approach your learning more strategically.
Yeah, brain science and language learning. I'm intrigued. Lay it on us.
Right. So when you learn a new language, it's actually way more than just memorizing words and rules. You're literally rewiring your brain.
Rewiring. Wow, okay. Sounds intense.
It's not as scary as it sounds. Think of your brain as this amazing network of connections, neurons firing. When you learn something new, a skill or knowledge, you're basically strengthening connections between neurons, or even creating completely new pathways.
Okay, so learning English is like building new roads or reinforcing highways in my brain, connecting vocabulary areas to grammar areas to sound production areas.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And specifically for speaking, there's this really important area called Broca's area.
Broca's area. Heard of it?
It's heavily involved in speech production, planning the words, coordinating the muscles. And studies show that actually practicing speaking strengthens the neural connections in Broca's area. It makes speech production more efficient, more automatic over time.
So that's why just understanding isn't enough. My Broca's area needs its own workout.
Exactly. Listening doesn't activate those specific speaking pathways in the same way.
Yeah.
It's like having all the ingredients for a cake, but not knowing the recipe, or having the baking skills to actually combine them and make the cake. You need the specific instructions and the hands-on practice.
Love that analogy. Okay, so we need to actively bake the English. But I know for so many people, even if they have the ingredients, the words, the grammar, there's this mental block when they try to speak. Like the brain knows it, but the mouth won't cooperate.
You're hitting on something crucial there. It's not just mechanics. The psychological side is huge. We have to tackle those internal mental barriers that hold us back.
Mental barriers, like what exactly?
Well, the biggest one we already touched on is that fear of judgment. Worrying about mistakes, sounding stupid, not being understood.
Oh, for sure. That fear is a massive wall for so many potential speakers.
It's totally understandable. It's human.
Yeah.
But, and this is important, those fears are often way bigger in our own heads than in reality.
We're our own worst critics, right?
Definitely. We scrutinize ourselves way more harshly than others usually do.
So true. We overthink every little potential slip-up, which just makes speaking feel terrifying.
Exactly. So a huge step is consciously shifting that perspective. We need to be kinder to ourselves, more forgiving of the imperfections, and really truly believe that mistakes are part of the process, even a valuable part.
Like a baby learning to walk.
Perfect example, they fall down constantly, right?
Yeah.
But they don't judge themselves harshly and give up. They just get back up, try again. Resilience. We need that same kind of resilience and self-compassion in language learning.
Okay, focus on progress, not perfection. Celebrate the small wins, like you said before. Every little step forward counts.
It really does. Acknowledge every new phrase you use, every conversation you manage, however short. Those small wins build real confidence over time, and gradually, those mental barriers start to shrink.
Okay, so we've got the brain science, the mental barriers. What about specific techniques to actually get the words flowing more naturally, to make speaking feel less like constructing sentences piece by piece?
Yes. Getting that flow. Well, one technique I find really helpful, especially for people who hesitate a lot, is something called chunking.
Chunking. Tell me more.
So chunking is basically breaking down longer sentences or ideas into smaller, natural-sounding groups of words chunks. Instead of trying to handle a whole long sentence at once, you focus on mastering these smaller, more manageable units.
Okay, give me an example. Like, instead of, I would like to order a cup of coffee, please.
You might think of it in chunks like, I would like to order a cup of coffee, please. You practice those natural groupings.
I see. Like building with Lego blocks. You put the smaller chunks together to make the bigger sentence.
Exactly like Lego. It's a great way to think about it. You assemble the pieces.
And I guess the benefit is reducing that feeling of being overwhelmed. Less cognitive load.
Precisely. Focusing on smaller bits feels less daunting. So you're more likely to say them smoothly, confidently. It helps break down the complexity.
Makes sense. You process and produce these chunks more easily.
Right. And with practice, recognizing and using these common chunks becomes automatic, which leads to more natural, fluent-sounding speech.
I can see how that would really help learners who feel intimidated by trying to form long, perfect sentences on the spot.
Absolutely. It's a great stepping stone. It builds fluency and lowers anxiety. So chunking is one. And I know we keep coming back to it, but revisiting shadowing with a bit more depth is worthwhile too.
Yes, let's do that. Shadowing seems like such a core technique. We covered the basics, but how can we really maximize it?
Well, just to recap the core idea, Listen to native speech, try to speak along simultaneously, mimicking everything, pronunciation, rhythm, intonation, as closely as possible, like being their vocal echo.
Not just the words, but the whole way they speak.
Exactly. You're absorbing the melody, the stress patterns, the pauses, everything. It's incredibly holistic.
Okay, so how do we get really good at shadowing? Any more advanced tips?
Yeah, a few things. First, choose your material carefully. Pick something that's slightly challenging, maybe just a little above your current comfort level.
Not too easy, not impossibly hard.
Right. You want to stretch yourself, but not get totally lost or discouraged. Find that sweet spot.
Okay, slightly challenging material. What else?
Break it down. Don't try to shadow a whole 5-minute clip right away. Focus on maybe 1 or 2 sentences at a time. Listen, understand it, then shadow just that small piece repeatedly until it feels smoother.
Yeah.
Then move on.
Ah, the chunking principle again, but applied to shadowing practice. Small, manageable bits.
Exactly. Consistent, focused practice on smaller chunks beats infrequent marathon sessions. And one more tip. Record yourself shadowing.
Record myself while shadowing.
Yeah. Then listen back and compare your recording directly to the original speaker. It's the best way to hear exactly where your pronunciation or intonation differs.
Ooh, that's smart. Direct comparison for feedback.
Invaluable feedback. It helps you pinpoint exactly what needs work. The more you do this, the more those natural English patterns just seep into your own speech. It really accelerates progress towards sounding more natural and fluent.
Okay, I'm sold on shadowing and chunking. These feel like really concrete things people can do. But all this practice is great, but eventually you have to actually talk to real people, right? That transition can be scary.
It absolutely can feel like a big leap, moving from controlled practice to spontaneous, real-time conversation. But that's where the real learning happens, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So how do we help listeners bridge that gap? How do they get from practicing alone to actually using English in real life?
Well, the key is to actively look for, or even create, opportunities for real interaction. And the good news is, you don't necessarily need to move to another country to do this.
Okay, I'm listening. How can I find speaking opportunities right here?
Start with your interests. What do you enjoy doing? Are there local clubs, groups, classes related to your hobbies where English might be used, even partially?
Like maybe a book club that reads English novels, or a cooking class with an international focus.
Exactly. Or a film discussion group, a sports team with international members. Connect your passions to your language goals. Weave English into things you already enjoy.
That makes it feel less like a chore and more like,
Life. Okay, what else besides local groups?
the internet is your friend here. There are tons of resources. Have you ever tried any language exchange apps or websites?
I know they exist, but I haven't really dived in. How do they work?
They basically connect you with language learners worldwide. So you find someone who's learning your native language and whose native language is English, for example,
Okay.
and you arrange to talk maybe half the time in English for your practice, half the time in their target language, your native language, for their practice.
Ah, a mutual exchange. That sounds really cool, actually.
It's fantastic. You get real conversation practice. You learn about another culture, maybe make a new friend. It's low pressure because you're both learners helping each other.
That removes some of the fear factor, definitely. I should really check those out. Highly recommend it. And beyond one-on-one exchanges, look for online conversation groups, virtual language cafes. Some platforms offer online tutors for practice sessions, too.
Wow. Okay. There are actually a lot of options if you look for them.
There really are.
Yeah.
And the main point, the big takeaway here is don't wait until you feel fluent or ready to start speaking.
Just jump in.
Pretty much. The sooner you start using what you know, even if it's simple stuff at first, the faster you'll improve. Take those small steps out of your comfort zone. Embrace the awkwardness sometimes. Seek out those chances to connect.
Right, because practice is one thing, but actually using it to communicate is the real goal. And remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Be patient with yourself.
Exactly. Be kind, celebrate the progress, and try to find the fun in it. Learning to connect with people in a new language is pretty amazing when you think about it.
It really is. This has been so useful, covering the brain stuff, the practical strategies, finding real-world practice. I feel like we've covered a lot of important ground.
Me too. Hopefully people are feeling inspired.
Yeah. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. Millions of people are learning English, facing the same challenges, celebrating the same wins.
That's such a good reminder. We're all in it together in a way.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be back for one final segment to wrap things up and leave you with some empowering final thoughts. Stay tuned.
Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive. It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? Really unpacking this whole challenge of moving from understanding English to speaking it confidently.
It really has. We've covered so much, from the nuts and bolts of brain science and practical techniques like shadowing and chunking to tackling those mental hurdles.
Yeah.
And, woven through all of that, one thing just keeps standing out as incredibly important: mindset.
Oh, absolutely. Your mindset is like the engine driving the whole process, isn't it? It shapes how you face challenges, how you see mistakes, how you stay motivated when things feel tough.
Exactly. It's not just about having the right techniques. It's about having that inner belief, that resilience.
Totally. And a huge part of a healthy mindset, I think, is setting realistic expectations.
Yes, so important. Because learning a language, especially becoming fluent in speaking, it just takes time and consistent effort. It's
Yeah.
not magic.
It's not an overnight thing like building a house, maybe. You need a plan, consistent work, a solid foundation. You can't just snap your fingers.
Great analogy.
Hmm.
And if you expect instant results, you just set yourself up for disappointment and frustration, which kills motivation.
Right. So you need that balance. Be ambitious, yes, but also be patient. Be kind to yourself in the
Well,
process.
patience and self-compassion are key.
And related to expectations, I think it's also really helpful for learners to define what fluency actually means for them.
Good point.
Hmm.
Because it's not always about sounding exactly like a native speaker or knowing
Yeah.
obscure vocabulary.
Right. It's more about being able to communicate effectively for your own needs and goals, right?
Mm.
Comfortably and confidently enough.
Precisely. Tailor your definition to your why. Why are you learning English? If it's for travel, fluency might mean ordering food, asking directions, basic chat. If it's for work in an English-speaking office, your fluency goals will be different. Maybe more focus on professional language, specific jargon.
So personalize it. Make the goal relevant to your life. That makes sense. And one of the best ways to keep that positive mindset going, I find, is focusing on the small wins.
Oh, absolutely. Celebrating progress.
Instead of always focusing on what you can't do yet, make a real effort to notice and appreciate how far you've already come.
Yes. Every new word learned, every sentence understood, every slightly awkward conversation you navigated, acknowledge it. Give yourself credit for that step forward, no matter how small it seems.
Those little victories really add up, don't they? They build momentum.
They're the fuel. It's easy to get bogged down in the challenges and forget to see the progress that is happening.
So true. Celebrate the milestones along the way, not just dreaming about some far-off finish line.
Exactly. Appreciate the journey.
And speaking of the journey, another crucial mindset piece is, well, resilience.
Yes. Bouncing back.
Because, let's be real, there will be frustrating times. Times you feel stuck, like you're hitting a plateau, not improving despite your efforts.
It happens to everyone. It's a totally normal part of learning anything complex. The key isn't avoiding those moments, it's how you respond to them.
Right. Don't let a setback derail you completely. Learn to bounce back, maybe reassess your approach, try something new, but keep going. That grit.
That determination. And one way to really build that resilience is by having a support system.
Connecting with other learners.
Yeah. Find language partners. Join online forums or groups. Share the struggles. Celebrate the wins together. Knowing others understand what you're going through makes a huge difference.
It's like having your own cheering section. Keeps you motivated, accountable, and reminds you you're not alone in this.
Exactly. That sense of community is powerful. And, underpinning all of this realistic expectations, small wins, resilience, community, is something even more fundamental: gratitude.
Gratitude. Interesting. How does that fit in with language learning?
Well, when you practice gratitude, you consciously shift your focus from what you lack to what you have.
Okay.
And in language learning, there's always something to be grateful for: access to resources, podcasts like this, apps, websites.
Right. The opportunity to learn itself, to connect with new cultures, broaden your horizons.
Even if you're just starting, be grateful for the chance.
Yeah.
It changes your perspective. You start appreciating the journey itself, not just fixating on the destination.
That's a really lovely thought. Approaching it with gratitude makes the whole process feel more joyful, more sustainable, less like a burden, more like a privilege.
Exactly. And that positive energy helps you stay motivated and push through the challenges.
Wow. Well, this has been genuinely inspiring. We've really covered the gamut from practical techniques to the crucial role of mindset. I really hope our listeners feel more empowered now.
Me too. And to everyone listening, remember, speaking is a skill. Like any skill, it improves with practice, dedication, and that positive, resilient mindset we've talked so much about.
Don't fear mistakes. See them as learning moments. And please celebrate your progress every single step.
Absolutely. And if you found this deep dive helpful, do subscribe for more discussions like this. Share it with anyone else you know who might be on this same journey.
Until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and keep speaking.
And maybe, just maybe, think about one small thing you can do right now. After listening, maybe 5 minutes of shadowing. Find one language exchange website. Sing along loudly to an English song. Just one small action to start building that momentum. We look forward to diving deep with you again soon.